Hey guys, so I wanted to come on here and redo this, mostly in a recording fashion, not a live stream fashion, so I adjust the camera here. Mainly due to the fact that last night, or late last night, when I was trying to do a live stream and everything, talking about all this wrestling news, the internet decided to go out for about 15, 20 minutes. And apparently, Xfinity, in infinite wisdom, once again said, "Oh, it's a planned outage, so we do apologize for any inconvenience." Or, we found an issue, a performance issue in your area, and we're going to fix it. And they're still fixing it, apparently. And I think what it really has to do, in my opinion, or at least partially in my opinion, is down the street over here is the, when you're coming off N Street, if you will, as it's called, coming into Newman and everything, and the first real street in town, it's called N Street. Basically, on the turn to go down Inya, which would come down to, the street that you turn on to come to where we live, to where I live, I should say. They're working on that area. They're working on reconstructing that area, and they'll be doing that until at least November, from what they're estimating, beginning of November. And apparently, in my opinion, I think that partially has to do with what's going on. Because they're basically doing this, it's going to interfere with some of the internet issues. Like, hey, we may have to touch this and move this and do this and da da da, and it's screwing with people. So, I'm guessing Xfinity, knowing about this, is like, well, what can we do? What can we say to avoid any kind of confrontation? And they just come up with the announcement of, oh, it's a planned outage, or it's an unplanned outage, or whatever it is. It's basically maintenance. It's basically maintenance. And from what I understand, basically, it's just their way, and I'm sure they're not the only one. I'm sure AT&T, DirecTV, Dish Network, Verizon, Cablevision companies, and all that. I'm sure they're all, T-Mobile, I'm sure they're all the same way, that the only reason they say, oh, it's planned or unplanned or whatever, or mostly planned, is to avoid giving you credit. Because they know if they do it and they don't announce, hey, we're doing an outage and everything, we don't, basically they know that, what I'm trying to say is, they basically know that if they don't do that, they know that if they do the outage and they don't make any announcement, and even if that outage is for like 15, 20 minutes, half hour, whatever, they know they got to give you credit because you weren't informed, or it wasn't, maintenance, or it wasn't weather related or anything like that. They know that they'll basically know you weren't informed. So, they would have to give you credit, and they want to avoid that. So by doing the, excuses of planned outage or unplanned outage and everything, is just their way of avoiding credit, giving credit to folks. Pretty much it, from what I understand. But I'm going to say this right now, and I'll probably talk about this more later. If I'm any of these, multimedia cable outlets, from Xfinity, from, from AT&T, from Verizon, from T-Mobile, DirecTV, Dish Network, you name it, Cablevision. If I'm any of these multimedia outlets that does all these services, cable, phone, internet, security, if I'm them, I better keep eyes in the back of my head, because, sooner or later what's going to happen is they're going to end up getting a cease and desist order, or they're going to get somebody suing them in a lawsuit for doing all these outages without notification, without texting them, without emailing them, without, snail mailing them, if you will. They are going to get a lawsuit or cease and desist, because they're not informing people properly of, oh, these are the times and days throughout this month that we're going to be doing an outage. Like, like last night, like last night when they did it, they could have said, yeah, at, a week, like last night when they did it, if they would have sent something out for the month of August, that being Xfinity, they could have listed it by saying, oh, by the way, on this day at this time for about 30 minutes, we're going to do maintenance. We're going to do a planned maintenance outage. So you're going to probably lose some service for at least that time frame, so we can improve on stuff. But they didn't do that. They didn't do that, and it's it's pissing a lot of people off. Honestly, it is pissing a lot of people off. And like I said, I'm not going to be surprised if in time all these, like I said, these multimedia conglomerates that provide all these services in one are going to basically have to deal with, deal with the consequences that come their way. And I think they know that. I think they know they're going to have to deal with the consequences that come their way in the near future. And I'm sure it's not going to be the first. I'm sure it won't be the first time it's ever happened. So they got to be ready. They got to be ready. But with that said, though, guys, let's get on to excuse me. Let's get on to talking about some wrestling news that I was trying to talk about last night before the outage happened and everything. So let's get into some of that wrestling news as we speak, right here at the 6-minute mark. Okay, so let's talk about what happened on SmackDown this past Friday, because a lot of people have been under the impression that Jey Uso quitting WWE means he's legitimately gone. No. If anybody paid attention, to the interview they did with Ariel Helwani, if anybody paid attention to that, they would know that the Usos basically told Ariel that one of their goals before, I guess, they hang it up or move on, is to have a match with each other at WrestleMania. And if this is going to drag, not drag, but if this angle, because that's what it is, of Jey quitting, is to drag it out to that long, then so be it. If it's to drag it out to at least Survivor Series, so be it. But for anybody to be under the impression that Jey Uso is legitimately gone and he's AEW bound, or he's Impact bound, or he's MLW bound, or whatever, people need to chill. They need to chill, because I get it. We're in a wrestling we are in a wrestling era, if you will, to where fans, let's be honest, if fans had the power to do what, to control the business, if they had the power to control the business, they would basically, take something like, they would basically make sure that someone like Jey, even if they knew it was an angle, they would basically have Jey show up in AEW, not only to make it seem more real and legitimate, but just so they can have their dream matches. That is why fans, even if they understand that this is an angle, and they should, it's all part of the story. This is why fans, will hype up, oh, he's going to be all elite. He's going to show up at All In. He's going to be here. He's going to be there. It's because they want their dream matches. And again, if they had the power, they'd be like, okay, Jey Uso, we know you're still in the WWE, but we're going to take you over here. We're going to put you in the AEW ring at All In against Kenny Omega, and you guys are going to have a 60-minute all-out classic. See, that's what they want. But, the truth is they know that's not going to happen, and that's why I think, they say these things, because they're trying to live vicariously on the what ifs. What if this could happen? This, what if he goes and do this? They're living vicariously through these fantasies, of what ifs that they want to become a reality. And because they can't accept the fact that this is just going to extend the Bloodline storyline, with the Usos and Roman and Solo and Heyman a little longer. Because a lot of people look at what happened at SummerSlam with Jimmy costing Jey the match, and Jimmy's reasoning for, hey, I'm not doing it, I didn't do it for Roman, I did it because I didn't want you to get as corrupted, as Roman if you became tribal chief. It's like in a way he wasn't against Jey being champion or anything, but it's more like, hey, I didn't want you to have all that at once, and you becoming as corrupted as this a-hole, that's supposedly all about blood, all about family. So, so a lot of people look at Jimmy's excuse there and they're thinking, really? That's your reasoning? That some people would accept that as a legitimate reasoning, like, okay, we see where you're coming from, we see where Jimmy's coming from. But then others are like, they look at what Jimmy did at SummerSlam, they hear his reasoning, which caused Jay to leave WWE after super kicking all three of them into oblivion, that being Roman, Jimmy, and Solo. People look at that and they're like, all this really is just to pad out this bloodline storyline a lot longer. It's to pad us out to at least Survivor Series, WrestleMania, Royal Rumble, whatever. That's all this really is. And in a sense, it kind of is, it's kind of doing that. It kind of really is, because apparently the Bloodline's going to take a break, at least this week, from SmackDown. But a lot of fans feel that what we got, in between SummerSlam last Saturday, and SmackDown this past Friday, a lot of people feel that it, well, not last Saturday, but the SummerSlam we got a week ago this past Saturday, and then, SmackDown this past Friday, a lot of people look at that as WWE pretty much, in their own way, kind of admitting that, yeah, maybe we should have pulled the trigger at WrestleMania when we did, because we could avoid this. We could avoid this kind of confusion, or this kind of stuck in a cliffhanger situation deal. And I can understand fans seeing it that way, and seeing WWE going this route as their way of admitting, yeah, we need a little bit more time to plan what the next step's going to be in the bloodline, because now that's like, you've done everything with the bloodline that you can think of. What's the next logical step? Because obviously you want to get to Cody and Roman at WrestleMania 40, so you can finally give Cody that moment. But where are we going? What's the next step? And then of course you have reports coming out that Roman actually has creative control. So Roman, in a way, may have say in the outcomes of his matches and everything, or the outcome of how certain things with the Bloodline storyline goes. And if that's the case, if that's the case, you think WWE would realize from previous mistakes others have made that you don't give someone, even if they're Roman Reigns, creative control over what happens. I mean, yeah, Roman probably said, yeah, let him pin me in the tag match at Money in the Bank, not a problem. Let him be the first one. But then what? Roman decides, oh, creative finish for Tribal Combat. Jimmy's gonna do this. Da, da, da. It's like you wonder why people are now getting a little frustrated. Because now they're seeing what's going on here is the same thing that pretty much, was one of the catalysts, one of the downfalls, for WCW, when they gave the likes of Hogan, creative control, to an extent Kevin Nash creative control, Scott Hall, you name it. When they gave certain wrestlers there creative control over the scenarios, not as much as they did with Hogan, it's like all you're doing is ruining, a good thing that you have, before it has a chance to really kick into that fourth gear. I mean, Paul Heyman in the press conference saying, hey, we're in the third inning and everything, we're barely, out of the third inning, when it comes to the Roman Reigns situation. He's, according to some people, he said that before. So, why would he say that again? It's because I think even Heyman realizes, yeah, we're kind of in a stuck situation to where we don't know what the next step's going to be. We don't know, where we're going to go from here with the Bloodline storyline. And I think that's why they're taking a bit of a break right now, at least with this SmackDown, to kind of figure out, okay, what's the next logical step and everything. So we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. But again, I get why fans, feel frustrated about, about what's going on, and why fans, in my opinion, are coming out and basically, believing in or wanting to believe that Jey Uso is legitimately gone, because they want something to live vicariously through, because they realize that this bloodline situation is going to keep going on for much longer, and it's getting to a point to pretty much, it's run its course. And now a lot of and that now even those that vindicated, validated, I should say, for Cody not winning at WrestleMania, are realizing, yeah, maybe Cody should have won at WrestleMania because we wouldn't be in this situation right now. But what are you gonna do? What are you gonna do? And everything. But that's what's happening. That's what's happening right now. Um, you know, people, people want to believe. The reason, in my opinion, people want to believe Jey Uso is legitimately gone is they're trying to live vicariously through the what if scenario because they're trying to, figure out, okay, what would be a good solution to really keep people still invested in this bloodline storyline that is pretty much run its course. How can we, get ourselves or keep ourselves intrigued and invested in it? And one of the things they're thinking about is, oh, what if Jay was to show up in AEW, and everything to really push this and show up at All In, and all that. It's like, we get it. We get the fact that, again, I get the fact, we all get the fact that people are getting frustrated with this. They're wearing down. The run that the bloodline has had is waning on a lot of folks, and they just want resolution. They want some kind of confirmation that we're close to the end. So to me, I think that's why people come out and they say, look, Jey Uso is going to be all elite, or Jay's going to do this, Jay's going to do that. It's not because, they legitimately believe Jay is gone from the company. No. They do it because they're trying to keep themselves invested. They're trying to keep themselves, still intrigued and interested in the Bloodline saga. Because they know, honestly, that this whole thing has run its course. And they're sick and tired of it. Being basically the same result, when it comes to Roman defending his title or whatever. Interference, retain, interference, retain, interference, retain. They're getting sick and tired of it, and they just want a strong finale or strong resolution, or at least some kind of hint of, hey, it's coming to an end, just be patient. But again, I think that's why people, living vicariously through these what ifs of, Jay going elsewhere because he's quit the company, when they know that's not true. I mean, how many times basically, hold on for a sec while I do something. Okay, sorry about that, guys. Thank God for pause options, But like I said, I think that's why a lot of fans are basically, essentially, I think that's why fans are basically saying these things, why they're living vicariously, through the what if scenario of Jey Uso going here and there, because they want to keep themselves invested in everything in the Bloodline storyline, because they believe, and I'm sure this goes, and I'm sure some of these fans that are doing this are ones that advocated for Cody losing at WrestleMania, are now realizing, as I said earlier, that maybe they should have went with Cody, because now they're in a situation to where basically basically they have to take a break at least for a week or so to try to figure out what the next step is going to be and everything. And that's why, to me, they're acting like, oh, this is all real, this is all legit, when they know it's not. So that's just my opinion, the way I see it. But yeah, for anybody that truly believes Jey Uso is gone from WWE, let me remind people of something. They did this before with many superstars, and it was always part of a storyline. I mean, let's go back about, 12 years ago, or going on 12 years ago. John Cena went through the same thing when he was part of the Nexus, and the storyline was, well, if he didn't help Wade Barrett become champion at Survivor Series, he would be fired from the company. And he was. He was. fired from the company in story, and the only way he would keep, coming back was as Juan Cena, and that was it. So, so that's basically, you know, so basically, hold on for a sec. Just let that. What are you doing? Ah, damn, can't hear. I don't know what you're talking about. See? Yeah, I have that on pause the entire time. I'm sorry about that. I meant to have it paused and everything. That was my fault. Um, anyway, like I was saying, you go back, and I have to do this, and that's why I'm a little distracted. And everything. Hold on for a sec. Sorry about that. And again, if I had it on pause previously, I thought it's because I thought I paused it and everything. My mom's just listening to something on cordless blinds because they had to replace the blinds in the kitchen and the cordless, and she's not, really used to that. But anyway, as I was saying, they did this with John Cena. They did this with John Cena and everything back in 2011, like I said, and they went as far as what they did with Jay here. They immediately put his name in the alumni section, only to have him be brought back about a month later. And the reason they did that is to make it seem legit, make it seem real, when it wasn't. And John would still show up. He'd show up as a fan and all that, even though he'd get in the ring and attack. He was still showing up, but he wasn't part of the company, and his name was in the alumni section. So you kind of, for anybody that thinks, that Jay is totally gone, and his name's in the alumni section, it's mainly because they're trying to make it feel as real and as authentic as possible, depending on how long this gets dragged out. So, again, I can understand why people want to, feel otherwise, like, oh, it's, this is real and everything, or, oh, what if this happens and all that. It's because they're trying to keep themselves, as I mentioned before, and I know I sound like I'm repeating myself, but they're trying to basically make it feel like, well, not feel like, but they're trying, they're trying to make it feel more legit than what they know it really is, but they're also trying to keep themselves invested. They're trying to keep themselves invested in this storyline more so than they are now. And again, I think this also includes people that were for Cody losing at WrestleMania, realizing that maybe it wasn't the best idea for Cody to lose at WrestleMania. So yeah, I think honestly, I think that's, so my honest opinion, I think that's why fans are doing what they're doing, feeling the way they are. They basically want to have an idea and everything. They want to have an idea, if you will, of they want to have an idea of something that could be, but they know it's not, because they want to keep themselves invested. They don't want to lose interest, especially when it gets started back up, which we could assume is going to be around either around Payback, after Payback, or mostly Survivor Series, because that's when we're going to really start turning the reels going towards WrestleMania. But yeah, again, I do apologize for not pausing that one moment. If it wasn't unpaused, and I was silent. Again, my mom is, here. I'm trying to do this without interruption. Uh, but yeah, guys, I just wanted to give you my thoughts on that art as far as the news goes, wrestling wise, when it comes to WWE and everything. And we're gonna go on to our next part right here. Okay, sorry for the pause update there, pause option there, but thankfully for it and everything. And I also have my security camera on with the mic on, so I can pretty much figure out whether or not she is going to be moving about, that being my mom. But on to the next topic here. Let's talk about, WWE Raw. And apparently, over the past 2 weeks, it's actually been better than it has been in a while. A lot of people looking at last week's Raw as being the best they've seen in quite some time, and then last night's being all right, not on the same level as last week's, but still decent and watchable. And a lot of people feel that it's kind of coincidental that we're getting something very similar to what we had last year when Vince McMahon was out on retirement, if you will. He was out on retirement, and everything, and Triple H had taken over. We started seeing more of a Triple H NXT influence. Now we're seeing that again since Vince is out with is out indefinitely right now for an undisclosed amount of time because of the life-altering spinal fusion surgery or whatever spinal surgery he went through. Now, speaking, of Raw and everything, like I said, everybody feels it's been, vastly improved. A lot of talent is showing up. I mean, last night we saw the return of Piper Niven. Basically bully her way, let's be honest, that's what it was, bully her way, intimidate her way into being Chelsea Green's new co-tag team champion partner. So, so we got that. So we got her return. We also got the return of Katana Chance and, Casey Catanzaro, or, Katana, basically Katana, we got Chance, Catanzaro and Chance, and so if you Carter and I'm trying to think of what their name is. Hold on, guys. Let me see here, and I do apologize if anything happens here. Let me look at something. Hold on. There she is, Casey Catanzaro. What is she going by right now? She is going by Katana Chance, and she is with Caden Carter. Yeah, Caden Carter and Katana Chance. Yeah, Caden Carter and Katana Chance. They returned last night on Raw and everything. Hold on. Okay, guys. Again, thank God for pause options and everything, especially when your family, your parents are, distracted with something else. But what was I? Oh yeah. But like I said, a lot of people have enjoyed Monday Night Raw, and a lot of people have said that we're seeing returns of people that Triple H brought up or brought into the fold a year ago when Vince was out, on his retirement, if you will. He was out on his retirement and everything. Hold on for a second. Okay, I was just about to pause it. But like I said, he was out on his, retirement and everything. So, so basically, we're starting to see that again. Now that Vince is out on his spinal surgery, if you will. He's out, on medical leave, if you will, for an undisclosed, as I mentioned, amount of time. But we don't know what that amount of time really is, per se. We don't know what that really is, what that amount of time really is. But all we know is he's all we know right now is, hold on for a second. Okay, sorry about that, guys. Again, a little bit of pause option. My mom's into the whole blinds situation. She has to. Basically, they put pull up. The kind of blinds that you push up in the middle to open them. Wide. If you want to just get like a You want to basically, instead of having the blinds with, where the window is right now, or where you can look out, but it's all the blinds and everything that, you could push it up if you want like a big old clearness and all that. But anyway, getting back to what I was saying, um, sorry about that. But like I said, a lot of people noticed basically that essentially, we're getting sort of a repeat of what we did last year now that Vince is out for an undisclosed amount of time with his recovering from his spinal surgery. And, that, that sounds, and obviously to a lot of folks, that sounds very promising. I mean, you're still going to get some Vince mannerisms, in there. You're still going to get them, in there, if you will. But still, but honestly, they feel like it's more like what it was last year. And I even told Alex this in a chat last night, and I said this online too, tagging Alex and Solomon and JD and Firestar Heart, and as well as hashtagging WWE Raw, SmackDown, and all that, on Twitter X. I basically said that it seems that they are putting more focus. WWE, in fact, if I can bring this up without any incident, and all that. Let me see if I can bring it up and read it to you. Without any incident and all that. Let me see if I can bring it up here. Let me see if I can bring it up. So it's here somewhere. It's here somewhere. So let me see if I can bring it up and all that. Hold on. And again, I do apologize to anybody that did tune in last night late to listen, that were listening to the live stream. Again, Xfinity just decided, we're going to do an unplanned maintenance deal, and not really tell you guys or anything. We're going to say it's planned, and that would be an excuse for not giving you guys credit and all that. So just they need to basically let people know well in advance, because like I said in the intro, sooner or later somebody is going to take them to court and ask for a cease and desist, or they're going to put them in a lawsuit that says, hey, you didn't do this, you didn't let us know, and that lawsuit will go in their favor, basically. But this is what I said though last night on Twitter, and then again I said the same thing in a chat, not a super chat, but a regular chat that he read. I said this, and I quote: "Maybe it's me, but it seems that Vince or not, ever since Fox declined WWE's offer, to keep SmackDown, basically Fox still has SmackDown until the end of next year, and they still have time to renegotiate and everything, but they declined a more recent offer, from WWE, and to me this is what's going on. And let me reread this, and I quote: "Maybe it's me, but it seems that Vince or not, ever since Fox declined WWE's offer to keep SmackDown, WWE has now put focus on Raw on USA. I know I can't be the only one that notices that, because when you really think about it, SmackDown has been looked at as the top tier A show, for WWE, being on Fox or FS1 or not. It's always been looked at as that top tier show, because it's got the bloodline, it's got everything, it's got some good, it's got the bloodline, it's got some good in-ring action, it's got, somewhat consistent storylines outside of that, so basically, SmackDown has been, the be-all, end-all right now, outside of Raw and even NXT. But it seems that that's kind of been cooled down a little bit since Fox said, "No, WWE, we don't like your latest offer to keep SmackDown on our networks." So WWE's like, "Okay, fine. You don't want us to, to me, WWE's like, "Okay, fine. You don't want to accept our latest offer? Here's what we'll do. We'll show you, courtesy of Raw, what you'll be missing if you don't meet with us in the middle. Like, accept something from us that's reasonable, or that we feel is reasonable, and you can partially agree on, or something like that." And I think that's why Raw is getting a lot more momentum right now, because of the fact that, WWE, Triple H and his crew even which even includes Dunn and Pritchard, are putting more emphasis on Monday Night Raw. They're putting more emphasis on the Judgment Day on Monday Night Raw. It's not because of the fact that okay they need to find what the next step's going to be for, let's say, the Bloodline. What the next stars they will have to focus on when it comes to Friday Night SmackDown. No, what it will be, well, not what it will be, but what it is they're basically, in my opinion, showing, Fox, hey, see the momentum Raw's getting? This used to be the momentum you had, and you could still be getting if you accept the offer we give you. And I'm sure they're going to give them plenty of offers, plenty more offers. And sooner or later, Fox is going to. You can't tell me that sooner or later somebody at Fox ain't going to be like, okay, fine. We see the momentum Raw's getting. We see the ratings are going towards them and everything. Okay, fine. We'll take whatever offer you give us. And I think that's what WWE is doing here. It's not just because Vince is out on a medical leave or anything like that. It's not like it's not because he's on medical leave or anything like that. It's not just that. It's the fact that they're sending a message to Fox. They're telling Fox, hey, this is what you could be getting and still could be getting, but please just accept the offer we give you. That's it. That's all they have to do. But, Fox declined the original offer they gave. So now WWE, in my opinion, they're just saying, hey, you don't want to accept? Here we go. We'll show you, courtesy of Raw, the original primetime show for wrestling before the likes of Nitro and all that, what you could be missing out on if you don't accept another offer similar to the one we gave you previously in the near future. So I think that's what's going on. I think that's why Raw is getting a lot of momentum. It's not because of, like I said, Vince being gone on medical leave and it feels very identical to last year and everything, but mostly because they're sending a message to Fox, hey, if you want, like, hey, we want to keep our show on your network. We know you want to keep the show on your network. This offer we're trying to give you is the best offer that we feel, you can run with. And again, maybe in the future they'll meet down the middle. They got a year. They have a year to really get something done, and I think they will. Because, again, like I said, you can't tell me somebody at Fox is not going to be like, oh, crap. They have more momentum. Raw and USA has more momentum than we do. We can't allow that to happen. So I think that's what's going to happen, honestly, in the future. I really do. And speaking of Raw, it definitely looks like... Hold on for a second. Sorry about that again, guys. But like I said, speaking of Raw, it seems that Raw now this year, because last year SmackDown got War Games. Let's be honest, that's who got SmackDown. Not SmackDown. Okay, let me rewind. Hold on. Okay, sorry about that. But like I was saying, it looks like this year they are, setting up Monday Night Raw to be the ones that get War Games, because last year SmackDown got War Games. We all know that. SmackDown last year ended up getting War Games, and it was the Bloodline along with Sami Zayn against let me see who it was last year. Hold on. Again, hopefully there's no issues here. Hold on, guys. Here we go. Okay, let me see here. Who was it in that match? Okay. Basically, last year's War Games was the Bloodline, of Reigns, the Usos, Solo, and Zayn when he was trying to get into the Bloodline, against Sheamus, Ridge Harlan, Butch, Drew McIntyre, and Kevin Owens. And that was all SmackDown. That was all SmackDown talent, if you will. At that time, that was all SmackDown talent. So it looks like Raw that was part, and they will, again, that was all SmackDown talent, part of the SmackDown brand. So it looks like Raw this year is going to get War Games. Or at least we think, we're going to, the War Games War Games is going to be part of it. I mean, they haven't straight out said War Games was going to be part of it and everything, like they did last year. But I think the reason it said it last year is because, Triple H is like, hey, I'm in charge now. At least, for the time being, I'm going to put War Games out there. So I think War Games is going to come back because Endeavor, I think, is probably going to be in favor of that concept. Like, hey, Vince, you can't really do anything right now. And even if you do come back and do something, even if you do come back and do something and all that, you're mostly going to be in an executive position to where, you're mostly going to be in an executive position to where you're going to help make decisions and not really been involved in creative as much as you used to, if at all. So I could see War Games coming back this year. They're just probably looking at like the setup for the All-State Arena, because every venue is different, and sometimes certain venues, can be adjusted for War Games. I mean, we look at the Performance Center, that got adjusted for War Games and all that. So, so they'll probably be able to do it. It's just, again, they got to probably figure out, okay, if we're going to put War Games here, how are we going to set it up and everything for the event. But, but it does seem like, what we're getting, but it does seem like this year, as I was trying to say, because I know I'm fumbling on my words and that does get annoying sometimes, I do apologize. But it does feel like, Raw this year is going to be represented in War Games, with the Judgment Day being the heel faction, along with JD Madugan, if you will, Jordan Devlin, if you will, against the team of Cody Rhodes, Seth Rollins, and Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn. So Zayn and Owens will be in a War Games match again, and for the second year in a row, this time on the same team. Well, the partners this time around will be Cody and Seth. And if you're adding Cody to the equation, I definitely think War Games will become a reality, because, War Games was his dad's creation, and Triple H does have respect for what Dusty has contributed to the business. And War Games was one of those creations by Dusty that, that Triple H loved and brought back, part of NXT. So I can definitely see, if you're going to have Cody involved in it, it's definitely, pretty much, not officially locked in or announced, but it's going to be. And I would not be surprised if he's the one that announces that the match between the four of them is War Games. I would not be surprised. But yeah, it definitely feels like the Raw brand this year is getting War Games. It feels like, the Raw brand this year is going to be represented in War Games and not SmackDown. Now, if War Games, stays around for the next for the next several years, then I could see, maybe next year's edition, the 2024 edition, either being a SmackDown one, or maybe being, a mixture one. Like, you have, a mixture of talent from all brands, represented in the War Games. I could see that. Like, I could see members of Raw and SmackDown on the heel side, and, members of Raw and SmackDown on the face side. Maybe even representatives of Raw, SmackDown, and NXT on the heel side, and the same with the face side. So we'll see what happens in the near future. But right now, it definitely feels like they are setting it up for Raw to have, the Raw brand, that is, to have the War Games match, going forward as we speak. So can't wait for that and everything. Can't wait for that. But yeah, but yeah, to me, it definitely feels like that along with that possibility, Raw is definitely getting more of that momentum that SmackDown used to have and everything. And I think it's mainly because, like I said, Fox declined the recent offer WWE put out there, and they're like, okay, you don't want to, it's like, okay, we still have time to give you, to work out another offer with you. So here's what we're going to do. We'll show you what you're going to be missing over here. And I think that's what's going on, in my opinion. Just my opinion. No, just my opinion. But yeah, they definitely seem to be getting a lot more momentum because again, you're seeing talent on there you haven't seen in a while, um, for the past few months, mysteriously, showing back up, like they did last year. So it's going to be interesting what they do. I mean, the whole Piper Niven, Chelsea Green scenario there, I think that's going to be fun to watch because it's kind of very reminiscing of what we've seen in the past, to where you have the brutish straight person and the comic relief, teamed together, and you have the brutish straight person basically, you know, I wouldn't say bullying, but intimidating the partner to get serious, to stop acting like a coward, and to get the job done. So I could see Piper Niven being in that role where she'll just, not take any BS from Chelsea. Like Chelsea will say, "Well, I'm going to go complain about this to the manager on our behalf," and I can see Piper saying, "No, we're not going to do it that way. We're going to go to that ring and we're going to prove it. We're going to do it, take care of it ourselves." So I could see Piper Niven being that kind of, being in that kind of role right now with Chelsea, to where she basically becomes Chelsea's superior by intimidation, and Chelsea's like, "Hey, whatever you want, I'm cool with." So that'll be fun to watch. But it is very reminiscent of those kind of roles that we've seen in wrestling, tag team wise, as well as we've seen in entertainment wise. So it's going to be interesting to see. But I definitely think right now the goal is, if things don't change, if things don't change, I could see, this being a setup for Caden, for Katana Chance and Caden Carter to become the tag champs. I think that's what it's leading towards, because when you look at those two, that's basically your foundation to trying to really build this women's tag team division. And I think once they do that, you'll start seeing, Isadon and Alba Fire come back as a team, and you'll see some other teams finally just start to gel together. Again, just my opinion, but I think what's going on here with Piper Niven and Chelsea Green on Raw, which is going to be a great kind of little comedic story angle, if you will, with Piper Niven being the straight person that basically puts Chelsea in her place. Like, hey, you're not going to complain anymore. You're not going to be a freaking Karen. You're going to do what I tell you to do. And what we're going to do is we're going to go to the ring and we're going to prove why we're the tag team champs. So again, I think that's going to be a great situation to look at. And I think what it's going to lead towards eventually is Carter and Chance getting those tag team titles. And I think that will be finally that solid foundation they're looking for to get the tag team division for the women, up and running, whether you agree with it or not. But yeah, that's what's going on there when it comes to Monday Night Raw, because Monday Night Raw right now, they've got a lot of momentum, and I think honestly, in my opinion, like I said, this is WWE's way of saying, okay, Fox, you want to decline our recent offer or our offer to, keep SmackDown on your network. Guess what we're going to do? We're going to put more focus on this, on Raw, and show you what you're going to be missing, Vince or not, So that's what I think's going on there. But now that I've talked about that, let's get on to our next topic, shall we? Alright, so going back to keeping it in WWE, Edge is scheduled to have his final match this Friday on SmackDown, and some are touting it as his final match in WWE. Some are touting it as his final match before he retires, from WWE and all that. But also, again, people are looking at it as like, this is his last match with the company, and then his contract's going to be up, which I think it is around this time, if not a little later, and that he's probably going to be AEW bound. Here's what I think about this. As much as I think, Adam Copeland, Edge, if you will, would be a huge get for Tony Khan and AEW, I don't think Edge is going to really want to go down there, or Adam Copeland is going to really want to go down there right now and be part of that because of all the drama going on. So I don't think that's going to happen. But what I do see happening is if he does go, I think it's going to be after the new year. It's not going to be, it's not going to be basically, right away. Like, okay, his final match is this, this Friday on SmackDown for, you know, that correlates with celebrating 25 years of his career. It's not just going to be, it's not just going to be that, it's not just going to be, his final match there and everything, and then 2 weeks later he shows up in Wembley and all that. Because I know that's what people want, and maybe that does happen. We're not really sure. Maybe that does happen. We're not really sure. Or maybe, this is his final match in WWE. He's retiring from WWE, but then 2 weeks later he shows up in Chicago. Lights go out. There he is standing in the middle of an AEW ring, opposite of Christian, and basically shocking Christian, and does, it helps Darby Allin become champion. I don't know. Maybe that's what happens. I can't really say. So, it does seem to be leaning in that direction to where, everybody's going to be able to witness his last match in the company, celebrate his 25 years with the company, and then all of a sudden he's going to show up 2 weeks later, either at All In or mostly at All Out, and have that confrontation with Christian to where it'll cost Christian, and Luchasaurus the TNT Championship. It does seem to be aligning itself in that manner and everything, and I'm sure he'll get WWE's blessing to do it, and all that. Just like RVD got the okay, even though he's under a Legends contract with the company, to do what he did on AEW with Jack Perry. So I'm sure he's going to get or has gotten the blessing to do that if it happens. But if not, if it does not happen, I could see and this is me, I could see Edge, Adam Copeland taking a few months off until the beginning of the year, and then showing up maybe for the first Dynamite or Collision of 2024. Give himself time to relax and rest and all that. I could see that happening. I can. But on the other hand, I could see him legitimately just being done. I can see him being done, and just riding off into the sunset. Spending time with his family, his wife Beth, and their daughters. So I could see him doing that. He wants to be a family man again and everything. So I could see that. But then again, I could see this being an angle to where maybe something happens. Maybe he sticks around, for a little longer, because, we know he wants to retire in Toronto, but does he want to retire, in Toronto, without being champion? So, I could see that. I could see maybe Edge, making this into an angle to where he sticks around and all that, to where he basically comes out and says, he's thought about it and he figures, I want to retire here, and I still do, but the more I think about it, the more I want to retire here, but I want to do it as champion. So I could see him maybe coming out and announcing he signed on for one more year or something like that to ensure at least he can retire, as champion in his home country and in his hometown of Toronto. I could see that too, but either way would work. Either way I think works, in my opinion. Because again, him having his final match here 2 weeks out from, 2 weeks out from, All In and All Out, definitely sets things up for him to show up, in those companies and everything right away. Kind of like Jon Moxley did. I mean, let's not forget Moxley, after he had his final appearance in the WWE ring, as part of the Shield and everything, what happened? 2 weeks later, in the inaugural show for AEW Double or Nothing, what happened at the end of the show? He showed up. He showed up and confronted Omega and Jericho. And that was 2 weeks after he left. So we could see something similar with Edge at All In or All Out. I mean, again, things seem to be setting themselves up to go in that direction either way. But if not, and he decides, look, I want to take a break for at least to the beginning of the year before I make a decision, that's fine too. Or maybe, again, he just wants to be with his family for a while, let his body really heal up. We'll see. Or again, the other solution is he could announce, "Hey, I've signed one more year, signed on for one more year with the company because I still want to retire here in Toronto and everything. I still want to do that, but I want to do it on top as the world champion or as the undisputed universal champion." I can see him doing it. I can see that as well. But we'll see. We'll see. But right now it does feel like he's going to take a break. Whether it's 2 weeks and then he's all elite, and then suddenly he's all elite. A la debuting at All In or All Out, or wait until the next year to do it. We'll see. But right now it does feel like this could be it. But then again, it could be setting up for him staying another year and officially retiring next year, but on top as the undisputed champion. Well, that might be what happens, but we'll see. We'll see. But let me know what your thoughts are on that. What do you think is going to happen with Edge? Do you think he's going to be all elite in 2 weeks? Or do you think maybe he's going to take time off, be all elite at the beginning of 2024, or come back at the Rumble for WWE? Or do you think he's going to, say he signed on for one more year? Let me know down below. Love to hear what your thoughts are. Okay, one more thing, keeping it in WWE. It seems that apparently, they have. Hold on for a sec. End it up a little bit more since it's not right next to the mic anymore. But apparently, just real quick, if you guys really do care about it, Lacey Evans has been released. Apparently, nothing official yet. I'm going to check that up right now. But apparently Lacey is no longer with the WWE. Yeah. Apparently she put out a tweet asking how much longer, like how many more days. And apparently she changed her Instagram and her social media mainly to say that she is now formerly known as Lacey Evans. She's going by her real name, Marcy, it looks like. Now some people might say, "Oh, well, maybe she's still with the company and everything," and she might be. Maybe they're just doing a character name change with her. We don't know. Maybe they're doing a character name change with her. We don't really know and everything. Looks like the internet's acting up here. Shouldn't be. Shouldn't be acting up. There we go. Maybe it was, it's probably the computer just loading or something. I don't know. Been acting up lately. Thankfully I'm not streaming right now. And everything. Yeah, it's the computer. It's loading. It's doing like a little load here and there because it's changing hours and everything. So, I don't know why it's doing that. I don't know if Patreon's acting up. Let me see. DeviantArt's fine. DeviantArt is fine. So it has to be Patreon. It has to be Patreon right now. Okay, it's going slow. Anytime a website goes slow and everything, it's because they're doing something. So I don't know. It's on their end. It's on their end. But anyway, like I was saying, Lacey Evans apparently is no longer with the company. Yeah, she's no longer with WWE apparently, because she changed her social media handle. From what I understand, she changed her social media handle, and she's been trending, as far as I know, on social media. She's been trending on on social media and everything. So yeah, there she is. So, yeah, let's bring this up. But yeah, she's changed it to Marcy Estrella. Marcy Estrella. No, not Marcy, but Macy Estrella. Formerly WWE superstar Lacey Evans and everything. So yeah, apparently she changed it. And yeah, she is, but she still has the Lacey Evans banner up there with "We Can Do It." So I don't know what's going on here. I don't know what. Yeah, because she put something up here saying, Roger, how many days left? So, and then she's saying, thank you all, and everything. So, apparently she's gone, but again, WWE has not said, as far as I know, WWE has not said anything official yet. So I don't know if maybe she's just taking a break and for a long time. I don't know. So I don't really know or anything. They don't say anything. They're not saying anything. So they're not saying anything. So yeah. But yeah, it doesn't feel like it doesn't look like WWE has really said anything. So she might have just walked out. I don't know. It's kind of uncharacteristic of who she really is to walk out on something. But yeah, apparently she is no longer with the company, unless again she's taking a break and everything, and she's just saying goodbye to the Lacey Evans character, and then she's going to come back as Macy Estrella, if you will, and that might be something. Maybe that's going to be the new character. We don't know. Maybe her agreement is, hey, I'm not Lacey Evans anymore. I'm going to be Macy Estrella. This is who I really am, and that's it. So we'll see. I don't know. But yeah, she's no longer with the company, and yeah, if you care about that, that's give me your thoughts and everything. But yeah, she's apparently gone, and well, we'll have to see what happens, because again, WWE hasn't dropped anything, per se. They haven't really dropped anything per se, and so we'll have to see. We'll have to see what happens. Again, she could be saying goodbye to Lacey Evans and just saying, hey, I'm now Macy. So we'll see. We'll see what they do. But again, give me your thoughts. What are your thoughts on it? So, on to the next topic. So, this is a big one. AEW. So, a lot of people have been getting on AEW over the past week or so, not just because of the fact that the cards for the upcoming All In and All Out pay-per-views are lacking, if you will, in star power, and everything, but the fact that there seems to be some drama going on in AEW, mostly involving around CM Punk. And apparently this all started, at least originally, with Ryan Nemeth. Ryan Nemeth is Nick Nemeth. Nick Nemeth is Dolph Ziggler in WWE. Ryan is apparently his brother, if you will. And you can definitely tell the family resemblance in the face. But Ryan basically, long story short, shot his mouth off. He shot his mouth off and said stuff that he shouldn't have said, honestly. Shouldn't have said, and it seemed like he kind of buried the hatchet, or at least kind of, cooled things down with CM Punk in the back, because CM Punk confronted him. CM Punk confronted him, at the Dynamite after the inaugural Collision episode, the debut episode of Collision. CM Punk showed up on the Dynamite afterwards because the Elite wasn't there, and apparently he confronted Ryan over what he said on Twitter, on social media, and basically apparently they kind of, shook hands and let cooler heads prevail, but there still was a bit of distrust. Well, this past weekend, CM Punk made the news again because of what he said about Hangman Page online. He didn't say it online, but he said it in the post-Collision aftermath. Basically, after he got, choked out by Samoa Joe, setting up their match for All In, Punk basically got on the mic and started going pew-pew, if you will, on Adam Page. Basically saying that he went into a grocery store or supermarket recently, and when he looked down the toy aisle, He saw nothing. He saw all the AEW figures, all the wrestling figures sold. Even his. The only exception of figures that was still hanging on their pegs were Adam Page's, the Hangman's. And he basically went on to say he's like a peg warmer, a bench warmer, basically stuff like that. He just shot on him. And at first, people thought, oh, well, this has got to be, this. Oh, and at first, people thought, well, obviously this had to have been cleared and everything because he signed in, a deal, a document, to where anything he says has to be, cleared with management. Well, apparently this wasn't really clear with management, and one could assume that the document he signed that has to where he has to clear certain things he wants to say, shoot style wise or work shoot style wise or whatever. One can assume that the document he signed only adheres, I should say, to what he's talks about on camera, or talks about when the show is happening live, not post show or even pre show, but during the show. So one could assume that that's basically what the documents that he signed and agreed to and heeded to. Like, you can't say anything out of line while the show is airing, but it doesn't say anything about post or pre. So anyway, apparently it wasn't cleared and everything, which surprised a lot of people. And apparently Punk did feel sorry for what he said, kind of regretted it. But that wasn't the only thing making news, because apparently the other stuff that's made news was who was sent home from Collision. Because speaking of Adam Page was flown in, apparently with some other talent, and he was flown in to do a promo. He was apparently going to do a promo and interview on the there in Greensboro at the Coliseum. But then he was told to go home, or he's basically told to go do the promo outside of the arena, in a different location, which was really confusing. It's like, well, why would you want to bring this guy, fly this guy out, waste his time and everything, to go to Collision, which you have pretty much come out and said is the CM Punk show. Why would you have him fly out to Collision, if you will? Why would you have him fly out to Collision and basically be told to go home when you've already told him, hey, we have plans for you, but then you tell him, oh yeah, plans changed, plans altered, we need you to go this place, or we just need you. Why would you do that? It didn't make any sense. But one could understand that maybe, they didn't want Adam in the building, just in case he bumps into CM Punk. We don't know. So yeah, it's like people were really confused by why would you bring him in if you were going to tell him to go home. It didn't make sense. Now, Ryan Nemeth was also brought in. Apparently he was going to work Collision, or at least the Ring of Honor tapings. We don't really know. And they told him to go home because of what he said online and stuff. Calling CM Punk soft and everything, which again is something that they did shake hands on and let cool heads prevail a couple months ago. But apparently he might have said something again. Apparently he did say something again. I think it did have to do with the soft comment or whatever, and or it was something else. And they just said, "Okay, Ryan, you got to go home. We don't need you here tonight." So it's like, okay, based on what Ryan has said in the past, fine, don't want to take a chance. But then, comes the but then comes two of the biggest surprises. Okay, so Page and Nemeth we can understand because of what Nemeth has said and the history between Page and Punk. We can understand that. But then you get Matt Hardy being sent home. Obviously Matt was going to work Collision, but obviously couldn't, because he was sent home. What reason that was, ties to the Elite, we don't know. Mostly people suspect that those that were sent home It's like a Hardy and a Namath. You know, that's the reason, because of the ties with the elite. What? I knew she was going to do. Okay, again, thank goodness for pause buttons or pause options on recordings and everything. But like I was saying, apparently, Namath was sent home because of what he had said and all that online recently, which I guess he's deactivated his Twitter X account for right now. So he was sent home. Matt Hardy again was a big question. It's like, okay, why was he sent home? Mainly, people have been assuming it's because of his connection with the elite. Maybe, we're not really sure. But the one that really got people talking outside of that was the whole situation with Christopher Daniels. Now, Christopher Daniels is in a tag team on Ring of Honor with Matt Sydal. He also competes occasionally on Collision, and maybe even Dynamite, as well as Rampage. So he still competes, but he's also the head of talent relations. And apparently, the head of talent relations, from a management perspective, is supposed to have more pull, more leverage, than the talent. Well, apparently that was not the case this time around, because apparently CM Punk had more pull than Christopher Daniels, because Christopher Daniels, being the head of talent relations, was sent home. He was sent home from Collision. Now, we don't know if he was supposed to work the Ring of Honor tapings with Sydal. We don't know if he was supposed to work the Collision, live event. We're not really sure. But apparently he was sent home. And this got a lot of people scratching their heads like, well, why would you send Daniels home if he's head of talent relations? He's basically the JR of, talent, if you will. Because remember, JR was head of talent relations, and John Laurinaitis, they're basically people responsible for overseeing the talent, making sure, certain people get signed, or certain people get, opportunities, stuff like that. So, it really made people wonder, like, what happened here? Because you've never once heard that ever happen with Vince McMahon, not Vince McMahon, but you never heard that, I should say, ever happening with, JR being sent home because somebody talent-wise didn't want JR there, or you never heard that happening with Laurinaitis, being sent home because a certain talent didn't want him there. You never heard that coming out of WWE, because it never did. Nor have you ever heard it coming out of Impact Wrestling. And as far as I know, even when they were in existence, you never heard it coming out of WCW or ECW, or any stories of that happening. Because a certain talent didn't want them there. But yet, this is probably the first time, as far as I know, that we've heard of a head of talent relations, being sent home, because of the talent. Now, there is report that Punk does have a little leeway, a little voting power, or something like that, when it comes to Collision, because Collision was made specifically for him and those that don't really get an opportunity, and those that are friends of his, as well, or willing to tolerate, Punk just to get opportunities. So there has been word that has gone around that he does have, a little bit of leeway. He does have a little bit of pull when it comes to Collision. But outside of that, when it comes to being above any sort of management, even if that management is a talent, then, he doesn't have pull. He doesn't have pull. And apparently it's due to the fact that if his buddy Ace Steel couldn't be there, who's an agent, then why should someone that's a close friend of the elites, of the Bucks and Paige and Kenny Omega by extension, why should that person be here if my guy can't be here? And a lot of people look at this and like, really? This is why you're upset? You're going to start having a pity party of, oh, well, if I can't have my way, then they're not going to have their way. It's like, seriously, is that what we're, Is that where we've gotten at now? A lot. It's just really kind of weird. In the eyes of a lot of folks, it's like, seriously, that's what we're doing now. That's what we're alluding towards. And everything. Is that what's going on? It just does not make any sense because you know again, we understand Punk has a little leeway, a little pull when it comes to collision and everything, and a little say here and there, but he shouldn't be able to be above talent. Or not talent, but he shouldn't be above management of any kind. And head of talent relations is, management. So he shouldn't be above Christopher Daniels. But yet he was able to get him removed. So again, it's like, what is like. So again, the biggest question everybody, including JD from NY206, was asking is, who's really running, AEW? Who's really controlling that company? And it looks like, and JD put this in a thumbnail when he talked about it earlier on an OTRS Extra. He basically said that he feels that it's Punk. That Punk is the one that's really running things. Not Tony Khan. Because one of the bigger examples, when it comes to that, and I'll get into that in a moment, but one of the big examples was something that happened when Punk returned. Now, apparently, CM Punk isn't, apparently, Daniels and Namath and some of them are not the only ones that Punk has an issue with being on Collision, or has had an issue with, period. He actually, I'm going to bring this up here on Patreon if I can, and everything, if I can, and apparently it doesn't want to come up right now because it's loading. And so, hold on for a second, guys, if I can get this going. And apparently it's not coming up. Hold on. Let me pause this for a second. That might. Okay, sorry about that. I don't know what it is, but I got to pause OBS Studio to bring it up. But anyway, there was an issue with Punk and Jungle Jack Perry as well. So apparently it's not just Daniels or Namath or Hardy, but to an extent, or anybody else that got sent home on Saturday from Collision, or even Page, that Punk has an issue with. Also has one with Jack Perry, because according to Fightful Select's, hold on for a sec. But like I was saying, apparently, like I said, he's not the only one that has an issue. He has an issue with. It seems he has one, or he had an issue with Jack Perry, because according to Fightful Select on the Patreon, which they posted about 8 hours ago, it states, and I quote, "There was another issue with an AEW talent that CM Punk brought face to face. Towards the start of Punk's AEW Collision run during the Canada tapings, Jack Perry was brought to Collision to film a segment, and the two had words about the plans that Perry was supposedly pushing. According to those on the side of Punk, Perry wanted to use a real glass for a backstage segment. Punk was of the belief that he did this so he didn't need to come to work the next week, which he sees as a big problem in the company. We weren't given clarity as to whether or not this was because the spot was dangerous or because Perry would have fulfilled a needed date ahead of time. Sometimes AEW does pre-tapes on previous shows to air the next week. Per Punk's side of things, Perry was going against production. Doctors and Tony Schiavone advised him not to do it, and them telling him that smashing a real glass was a safety hazard. Perry wasn't happy with that. Shortly after, there were guidelines put in place and forwarded to talent of things that required clearance. Punk's claim was that he was asked to step in and calmly said that they don't do that on Saturdays for Collision, and if he doesn't like it, he could stay on Wednesdays. Word of the situation had made its way around the locker room and was referred to as an argument. Punk's claim was that Perry was throwing a temper tantrum over the spot not being cleared and people trying to prevent it. We reached out to Jack Perry but did not hear back. We weren't told how the situation ended, but several that we heard from agreed with the stance Punk at least claimed. For those claiming that the tweet was misrepresentative of the story, it was called an argument by numerous people familiar with the situation. That is also an incredibly weird thing to get hung up on. So yeah, he had an argument with Jack Perry, because apparently Jack Perry, and I think this is why we haven't seen him on Collision either, is Jack Perry wanted to do an angle that would give him time off or something like that, to where he wanted to use a real glass to get smashed with or something. And everybody, apparently, including Punk, was against it because that's not safe. And doctors and Tony Schiavone even advised him not to do it. So, yeah, it seems that, Punk, it seems that when you kind of look in the middle of it, Punk wants to do things the right way. He wants to, have a peaceful situation and everything. So when it comes to like certain backstage segments that, certain stars that come on want to do, he'll either be like, okay, well, let's clear that first, let's see if it's okay, or he'll be like, look, that sounds great, but if the way you want to do it, it's not a good way to do it. So apparently, from a safety perspective, he wants to ensure peace. He wants people to understand, hey, I want everybody to have fun here and everything, but I don't want anybody to get hurt and everything. And if you don't want to abide by that, then you shouldn't be here. So yeah, when it comes to wanting to use like real glass or something like that because of the hazard involved, I can understand, and totally agree with Punk and the doctors and Tony Schiavone's stance on it. But as far as everything before that, with everybody being sent home, this past weekend, it's like, it's like like, again, the question is who's really running things, and this kind of correlates with something that happened around that debut episode, if you will, or around that time frame, because apparently when Punk showed up, and this just got out to the public, Tony Khan was in Gorilla, and he was chanting CM Punk, CM Punk, CM Punk, CM Punk, just like the fans would in attendance, or the fans in, just like the fans would in attendance, or even the fans in his hometown of the Chicago area, so basically word, I guess, recently got out that Tony Khan was acting more like a fan doing that than acting like a boss, and that's really brought a lot of things back into question that people have been talking about in the past year, like, what is going on with Tony Khan? Is he ever going to act like a real boss, or is he just a wrestling fan flaunting the fact that, hey, I own a wrestling company now, and hey, look, we wrestling fans can do it better than people that have been doing it for years and decades? Is he just being a fan that wants to flaunt that fact, in the face of everybody that, again, has been doing this for years, for decades, like the people in WWE, Impact Wrestling, MLW, New Japan, AAA, Rev Pro. Is this his way of doing that to prove, hey, see, we fans could put on a better show than you guys have been doing it for years and decades? It's like, is that, is that the reason, is that why he invested money into creating All Elite along with the Elite and Cody? Is that why? Because he wanted to prove that we fans could do a better job than those that have been in the business for years and decades, and have have it basically part of the family history, or inherited it. Is that why? Is that why he invested money? I mean, if you would have compared it to, and I know it's a strange comparison to make, Billy freaking Corgan, who runs the NWA, he takes his duties, his job as the owner of the NWA, the promoter, more seriously than Tony Khan. And that's a fact. Anthem Sports, and Scott D'Amore. Well, Scott D'Amore's been in the business, so he has a better understanding, but Anthem Sports, they take this more seriously, with Impact, than Tony Khan does, apparently. Now, of course, Tony Khan has gone on record in various interviews or media scrums or whatever, and said, "Hey, I'm not going to be like everybody else. I'm going to be different," and that's understandable. But there is a difference between being different and actually taking a page out of what those that have been doing this for years who take this more seriously and legitimately, as a sport. There's a difference of being the alternative, but also taking pages out of that and being like, okay, what can I do to really, show I'm the boss? Because if you act like a fan and you're chanting one of the talents' name like you're a fan while you're in gorilla position, that's not a good look. That basically makes it look like you're just, again, a fan flaunting the fact that that you're fortunate enough to have all this money and it's allowed you to have your own wrestling company, and now you want to flaunt it and throw it in the face of those that have been doing it for a long time to say, hey, see, we fans could do a better job. Maybe you should let us fans run things. And and that's going to bring me to the last thing I want to talk about in a moment. But yeah, this is not a good look for Tony Khan, because if it's making it look more and more like, Punk is running the show as far as the collision side of things go, and let's say by extension the Elite is running things, from a Dynamite perspective, that's not a good sign. That's not a good look, if you will. And Tony Khan needs to realize that. And if he doesn't realize it, I guarantee you, if word gets out to Zaslav and Kathleen Finch that, hey, this is what's going on, they may meet with him. They may talk with him and say, hey, if you want us to keep investing in your company, and you want us to keep pumping in millions and millions of dollars into your company year after year, you need to grow up. You need to start acting like a boss and not like a fan. So to me, if I'm Tony Khan and I don't want something like that to happen, I need to get my act together and put my foot down and say, okay, enough acting like a kid, enough acting like a fan. It's time to grow up. And that's what he needs to do. That's what he needs to do. But, this brings me into the next thing I want to talk about, because when I heard JD and others finally bring it up as well, it's like, again, I've talked about it, others have talked about it, but still, it needs to be addressed. Okay, so the last thing I want to talk about here in this wrestling news and everything does have to relate to, what's going on with Tony Khan in that moment where he was doing the CM Punk deal when CM Punk returned at the first Collision. Well, Tony Khan was in gorilla position, and he was doing this. CM Punk, CM Punk, CM Punk, chanting like a fan, like a fanboard in the audience or whatever. And that got people talking, and JD touched upon it, and it's like, well, and the question I think JD asked was, are we, Tony is like, are you a fan or are you going to act like a boss? And that's the question a lot of people have had about Tony Khan when it comes to these moments, especially with what's going on. Like, are you a fan or are you going to act like a boss? Now, there have been times though Tony Khan will put his foot down, maybe at the behest of the WBD, or maybe the behest of certain other team members he has around him. He will put his foot down, but most of the other time it seems that he's more viewed as just being a fan that is just happy to have a wrestling company and have all this great talent around him that he's always watched for years, and now he's working alongside them. And it's like, yeah, Tony, that's great, but again, as I mentioned before, there's a difference between being a wrestling fan and being a boss. And a lot of people, and I've said this before, in fact I just said it moments ago, that it seems old Tony Khan is really doing, honestly, is just, basically, trying to flaunt the fact that he's a rare case of being a wrestling fan that has all this money. He has all this money and everything, and now he's able to, live out the dream that all fans want, and that's own their own company, be able to sign all this great talent and all that. And then basically, even if he's not, coming out and saying it, he's shoving it right in the face of WWE, right in the face of Paul Levesque, aka Triple H, or Vince McMahon, or he's shoving it in the face of New Japan and AAA. Those are the associates with, or even Rev Pro, another place he associates with, or even Impact and MLW and PWG and GCW. He's shoving it in their face by saying, but mostly he's shoving it in the face of the likes of WWE by saying, "Ha ha, see, I'm a wrestling fan. I'm just a average wrestling fan, and I'm proving the fact that I can put a better wrestling product on than Vince McMahon and Triple H, and they've been doing it for years. I'm a better promoter. See, we fans know what we're doing, because we come on here, because we come out all the time and say we can do better. Well, guess what? I'm proving it. And fans of, and if that's how fans are viewing him, especially again with the recent revelation, that he was doing the CM Punk chant in Gorilla when CM Punk came back. It's like first of all, TK, and I've said this before. I don't know if JD's ever said it, or Alex just Alex of Alex's World has said it, or if anybody has said it, But TK, here's the thing: when we fans come out, and we say, where we're ranting or criticizing or whatever, the wrestling product, whether it's WWE, Impact, NWA, GCW, you name it. When we come out and criticize, the product, for some of the, stupidity that we see being showcased, when we come out and criticize it, and along with that criticism or ranting, we say, hey, give us the book. We could probably book a better show and better product than Vince can, or better, give us the opportunity. We could book a better show and product than Triple H can. When we say that, TK, when we say that, we're not saying that because we're daring, we're challenging WWE or NWA or whoever to literally do it. No, we're saying that out of frustration. We are venting our frustration. In other words, don't take what we're saying seriously about, hey, we could book a better show. No, we're just venting our frustration. That's it. That's all we're doing. We're venting our frustration, and it's something you shouldn't have to take seriously. Because if you're going to take it seriously, then all you're doing is putting a black eye on the IWC. Because if even those within the industry, like a Triple H, like a Scott D'Amore over at Impact, like a Bill Apter, if you will, and maybe he won't say it to your face, but maybe even your good friend Meltzer and everything, and even those that have an association in the business, like a JD or an OTR Central, or a Solid Monster, if they're coming out and basically viewing you as that, being a fan that's trying to prove fans could do better, then again, what you're doing is you're putting a black eye on the IWC, because that's how they see us at times. They see us as, coming out and complaining and saying we could do this better, but not coming out and proving it or anything, and that all we really are is talk. All we really are is talk. Now, true, Tony Khan, you've come out and you've proven it can be done if you have the money, but we as fans even realize that if we were to make it happen ourselves, we have to separate ourselves from being the fan and being a boss. And again, when you come out and when it comes out and it's revealed that you did something like that, along with all the other antics and reactions and stuff that you've done, publicly or not publicly, but it gets revealed later on. Again, it doesn't, and it basically paints you more as a wrestling fan than a boss. And, people are going to view you like that. People in the business are going to view you like that. Lance Storm, who, shows up on the Wrestling Observer sometimes, will view you like that. Even though I think Lance Storm has made an appearance for you, he'll view you like that. There are those probably in AEW that view you like that, and probably ask themselves, well, why is he acting more like a fan and not like a boss? Why is he taking charge? What's going on here? Like, even they probably ask the question of who's running the ship, But it's but again, and again, Tony, there is a major difference when it comes to running a promotion, as a boss, and running it as a fan. Because as a fan, you're doing exactly what a lot of people are accusing you of doing. You are letting the inmates run the asylum, all because you're in awe and shock and surprise and worship, and basically you're in that worshiping mode of all hail Punk, all hail Danielson, all hail the elite. You know, that's all you're acting like. You're not acting like a real boss. You're acting more like a fan that worships and kisses the feet and the ground that they walk on. And you can't be doing that. Because again, what that does by your own extension, or by your own actions and everything, by extension it makes the IWC, fans like us, look bad. And all we ever do is just come out and say, certain things like, oh, we could do a better product, we could book a better show, whatever, than Triple H or Vince McMahon or this person or that person. All we're doing, like I said, is just venting our frustration. We're venting how we feel. We're basically telling you through our venting, yeah, this is what, if we had the opportunity, this is what we could do. But what we should also be telling you is, hey, don't take what we just said seriously. We're just, ranting. We're just venting how we feel. We're not saying we can do it or anything. We're just venting our frustration. And yet here we have Tony Khan, being, basically proving, proving all the critics of, oh, wrestling fans don't know what they're doing or don't know what they're saying. They can't run a company, correctly and all that because they'd be too much in awe of the talent they would have. Here you have Tony Khan with some of the actions he's done, including the more recent one of chanting for CM Punk, in gorilla position as a fan, proving the critics right. Proving the Triple H's, the Vince McMahons, the D'Amores, the Brett Lauderdales, and all of them, that are promoting, the promotions out there from, WWE to Impact to MLW to GCW to AAA to New Japan, Rev Pro, you name it. Here you have somebody proving them all right. And that is something that Tony Khan needs to stop doing. He needs to stop doing. And and again, here's why fans still look at him, not one. Sorry about that. Sorry about that, guys. But like I said, here you have Tony Khan proving all those critics, is which are basically current promoters and owners and everything of places like WWE and such, correct. Here you have him proving those that have been critical about him owning a company and not acting like a real boss and more like a fan, correct. And everything. And he needs to stop doing that. When they see that Punk is able to have someone that you put in talent relations, a management position, a position that's higher than Punk on the totem pole, if you will, because he's a talent. And yeah, he may have some say and voting power here and there when it comes to Collision and all that. But when people hear that he caused, a head of talent relations and Christopher Daniels to be sent home when that shouldn't have happened, that puts people questioning, who's really in charge. Is it the talent or is it Tony Khan? Is it the talent or is it Tony Khan? And again, it gets people, questioning, the status, like it gets people questioning that status quo in a major way. It's like at any job. If when I was working at Target or Walmart, and even before that Walmart, if I was to, have say in who shows up, over, let's say, my bosses and I got what I wanted, then people and then others follow suit like, oh, I don't want this, I don't want that, da 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 da, da. Or I don't want this person there, I don't want that person there. You know, again, the question would be raised: who's running the ship? Who's really in charge? Is it the management? Is it the store owners? Or is it the associates? Is it the attendees? You know, that's what they'd be wondering. Like, who's really running things? Honestly, who's really running things and all that. That's what they'd be. That's what people be questioning. Because again, if someone like me, as a cashier, or an attendant or associate, was to say, well, I don't want this manager here because I can't get along with them, or they're connected with this person, and the higher up said, okay, that person goes home. They're not fired, they're not fired or laid off. They're just going to go home because you're here. If I was able to do that and others were able to do that, then even the customers would be asking, well, like, who's running things? Well, maybe the customers wouldn't care, but still, word would get out most likely, and they'd be questioning, okay, who's really running the ship here? Who's steering the ship? Is it the associate attendees, or is it the management? Because management should be able to tell someone like me, well, I'm sorry you feel that way, but they're your front end manager, or they're your assistant manager for today, so they're staying. I wouldn't have no say in it. I'd have to be like, okay, I'll be like, okay, fine, you're the boss. Whatever you say goes. I'll just find a way to deal with it. Just find a way to tolerate it. And to me, again, that brings up that question of, again, hold on, I lost my track of thought there. Okay, sorry about that. Almost lost my track of thought. But, that basically that wouldn't bring up any suspicion, or it wouldn't get people talking, at all. If my manager was to tell me, well, I'm sorry you feel that way, but they're the boss, they're the person I put in this position, so they're staying. You just gotta tolerate it. You just gotta swallow your pride. Or, hey, there's the door. Don't let it hit you on the way out. And I have to be like, look, fine. Fine. You're the boss. I'm not gonna say any more. I'll just do my job, and hopefully things will turn out all right. And people, and again, that would raise less suspicion. On who's running the ship, if you know what I mean. So when you hear something like CM Punk having someone that basically is above him being sent home because by him or by Tony Khan, for CM Punk or whatever the situation was, it really brings into question who is running the ship. Is it the talent that's running the ship, or is it Tony Khan? And from a show perspective, it's like, who's running the ship? Is it CM Punk running the ship on Collision, or is it Tony Khan? Is it the Elite running the ship on Dynamite, or is it Tony Khan? You see, that's where fans they will question whether or not Tony Khan should be running the company, period. Should he be running the company, period, or should he be handing over that title, that job, to someone that has more experience in the business? I'm just saying. Because again, when you have something like this coming out, and you have reports of Tony Khan chanting CM Punk, CM Punk, CM Punk while he's in gorilla position like a freaking fan, and instead of going up to Punk, maybe giving him one of his hugs, shaking his hand and say, hey, welcome back, let's get to work. What? Sorry about that. But like I said, basically that it brings into question like who's really running the ship. And again, like I said, if there are people that do view the fact that Tony Khan, if he's not capable of running the ship correctly, as a boss and not as a fan, and he can't tell the difference between the two, then maybe he should hand it over to someone that has experience in the business. And that might be what happens. I mean, I'm not going to be surprised in the future that if WBD, mostly Zaslav or Catherine Finch or whoever, contacts Tony Khan and says, Tony, we're hearing all these things. We're hearing all these things. We're hearing you're acting more like a fan instead of a boss. Maybe you should hand over control of the company to someone in the company that has experience in this business because you're not showing that you're capable of doing it. Maybe that happens, and Tony Khan's like, okay, well, let me see who I can find, and it might be an Art Anderson he gives it to. Maybe it's a Steve Borden he gives it to. We don't know. It's like he'll still own the company, but as far as running the day-to-day operations, give it to somebody that has experience. That's how a lot of people feel he should be doing anyway right now. Because when you get reports of him doing the cheer and everything, the chanting for Punk, acting like a fan, it doesn't make him or the company look good. Especially along with all these reports coming out of, this happening, that happening, within the span of a year, all starting with what happened at All Out's media scrum brawl and everything, and now kind of continuing here almost a year later, and all the stuff before that and in between, it doesn't paint him in the company in a good light. It doesn't. And if I'm Tony Khan, and I want to prove, hey, my company is the alternative, but I can also take responsibility, then I need to basically differentiate myself from being a fan and being the boss. So that's what I would do if I'm Tony Khan. Now look, are there times he'll take things seriously? When it comes to being the boss of AEW, he'll act like a legitimate boss. Yeah, he will. I mean, what he's doing for the Maui wildfires and everything, over there in Hawaii, what he's doing with these next 3 shows starting tomorrow night, with it being called with basically being 3 episodes, subtitled "Fight for the Fallen." I have to applaud him for it. I have to give him credit for it. I really do. But as far as outside of that and some other things that he's actually shown that he could be a boss about, he could be mature about, this, outside of these other things, has not been a good reflection on his part, especially when it comes to being the one that owns the company and runs the company. Because what you're doing is you're basically proving anybody asking the question of who runs, AEW, like who runs the Collision portion and Dynamite portions of AEW. And as far as people are concerned, those in the business, probably those that work for Tony Khan and everything, those that have been critical about him and everything. Hold on for a sec. Basically, again, he's proven all these people, that work for him, that see him this way, correct. Because again, you can't tell me people in his company that work for him, as part of his management team, his agent team, and even the talent don't see him more as a fan than a boss and everything. You can't tell me they don't, because they do. They just won't say anything because, they don't want to ruffle his feathers and maybe cause themselves to lose their jobs. It's just one of those situations where I think Tony Khan needs to be sat down by his dad or sat down by somebody and basically told, look, you are the boss of this company. We know you're a fan, but you need to act more like a boss. So why don't you take that fan side of you, put it over here, for the time being, and focus more on being a boss. Because again, a lot of people are going to view him like that based on all his actions. Again, with the Maui situation and other stuff, yeah, he's proven he can be a boss. He can take things seriously and be mature about it. But outside of that, basically, you're looking at 90% or 85% more, showcasing him as more of a fan than a boss. And that's not good, especially with what's going on right now. Again, in the past year, sorry about that, but like I said, basically, a lot of fans are gonna, again, like I said, he's shown he can be mature about stuff. He can take things seriously, like what he's going to be doing this week to, support the victims of the Maui wildfires and everything. But outside of that and a few other things, 85% of the way people view him, those probably in his company, talent and management and team-wise, and those that talk about wrestling, that have been in the business and everything, like a Booker T, a Russo, a Bischoff, a Cornette, and Hannibal, you name it. Those that have been in the business, in some capacity, 85%. Basically they see 85% of him acting more as a fan than what he's done, because 15%, like I said, is connected to what he's doing this weekend for the Maui wildfires and other stuff. But outside of that, no. That 85% is more viewed. That other 85% of him is viewed more as a fan that doesn't know what they're doing. And again, you have people like a Russo, people like a Bischoff, people like a Booker T, people like, a Jim Cornette, people like a Dutch Mantell, people that have been in this business, that know what they're doing, that have run promotions and everything, past and present. You have people basically saying you have people saying that they applaud him for doing certain things, like wanting to send proceeds to help the victims in Maui. They have him applauding for doing that and everything, as well as some other stuff. And such. But then you have them basically saying, well, that's all good, but that's only 15% and of him being, but that's only the 15% of him that's acting more mature, acting more grown up, more like a real boss, a real owner of a company. While this other 85% of him is acting more like a fan, because he's letting all this crap happen, in front of his eyes, and he's not doing anything about it. So yeah, you have a lot of people that I've mentioned that have been in the business, Hall of Famers, legends, you name it, that are criticizing him being more of a fan that just had money to create his own wrestling company, basically, not acting like a real boss, 100% of the time, and that only 15% of it shows up when it needs to, like with certain situations, like what's going on in Maui. But outside of that, it's like, they look at him and it's like, how can we really take him seriously when he's acting more like a boss? I guarantee you, honestly, that, I guarantee you, Dutch Mantell, once word gets out to him, and I'm sure it's going to get brought up if not already, he's going to basically say something along the lines of, well, maybe Tony Khan shouldn't be running the company. Like, he can own it, but maybe he shouldn't be running the wrestling portion of it, at all. Because if he's acting like a fan, chanting for CM Punk, upon his return in gorilla position, that's not good. And if it's not Dutch Mantell, you know damn well that Jim Cornette or Vince Russo will say it. Maybe even Bischoff will say it. Because they've been critical. It's like they'll shed some positivity towards AEW and towards Tony Khan when it's meant to be, showered and everything towards him. But most of the time, they view him as just a fan that had money, that created his own wrestling company, but doesn't take it seriously, because he just, as I mentioned earlier, just wants to shove it in the face of, let's say, Vince McMahon in WWE, saying, see, we fans could do a better job than you guys that have been in the business. I apologize for that. That's my mom cheering for the Giants, so I apologize for that. But anyway, they view him, like I mentioned earlier, as someone that's trying to flaunt what he's done in front of Vince McMahon, WWE, and Triple H, and say, see, we fans can do a better job than you guys can. And it's like, okay, fine, you've proven that, but now you need to prove yourself to be a boss. You need to prove yourself as being someone that's not going to take BS anymore from anybody. That, whatever situations, that arise backstage or whatever, you need to squash. And that you need to show to people like a CM Punk, hey, I may value you as one of the faces of my company right now, but I'm the boss. So if I want Christopher Daniels here because he's, head of talent relations, and as well as I want him performing on Collision, guess what? That's exactly what's going to happen. And and that's all he needs to do. That's all he needs to do. Now he needs to step up and do that kind of stuff. But along with him not doing that, again, basically 85% of him showing that 85% of him 85% of him, I should say, showing that he's more fan than boss and everything, with that side showing more so than the other side, which is only like 15% in the eyes of many fans, again, it's like, it doesn't paint a good picture, especially when you tie in the fact that by now, if he was taking this seriously as a boss and not as a fan, we would have an entire card for both All In and All Out already set to go. We'd have all the matches, set for All In, and we'd have all the matches set for All Out. No matter what the situation. No matter what the situation. So, because he'd basically be acting more as a boss and someone that's taking this seriously than a fan. And again, because he's not doing it, it doesn't paint the company in a good light. I mean, yeah, he's going to be able to flaunt the fact that from an attendance perspective, he was able to break, the actual attendance records that WWE put out there for WrestleMania 32, WrestleMania 3, SummerSlam 92. He's going to be able to come out and say that. He's going to be able to come out and say, hey, we broke the damn records and everything, the actual attendance records, fan-wise for all those events. He'll be able to do that. That you can't take that away from him. But is that all he's going to hang on to? From here on in, even if he sells out All Out, which I'm sure he's going to, at the United Center. But is that going to be his, his go-to anytime he wants to flaunt in the face of a Vince McMahon or any critics or Triple H or any critics that look down upon AEW as a pissant t-shirt company or secondary promotion? Is that going to be his go-to, saying, well, I sold out, I broke all your records, and I broke all the WWE's actual attendance records and everything with All In London, so I have proven that we fans could do a better job than those that have been in the business a long time. So, kind of deal. It's like, is that going to be his go-to? Or after All In, and everything, after All In, it's just checking something there. But, after All In, is he going to finally settle down, and be, an actual boss? Be, someone that takes what he does seriously, and everything, now that he's accomplished, his goals. That he's finally been able to, on an international, if not worldwide basis, show that AEW is not secondary, but on the same level as WWE, basically at equal footing. Will he finally be able to be like, okay, I've accomplished it, I've shown that a fan could do this, now I'm going to take things seriously. Is he going to do that? We don't know. But right now, with what's going on behind the scenes and everything, not just recently, but in the past year, from the all out media scrum brawl to what's happened recently, and as well as in between and before, yeah, that doesn't paint him in a good light as someone that should be running a company. That basically puts him in the 85% category of the wrestling side of him being more up front than that 15% side of him that's the boss that should be up front. Because 100% of it should be the boss, or 100% should be a 50-50 balance of fan and boss. But yeah, Tony Khan, you definitely need to wake up and try to balance out being a fan and a boss and make it work, or choose one over the other. And if you choose being a fan more so than a boss, then maybe somebody needs to step up and tell you, hey, give the reins of the company that you own to somebody to take care of wrestling sidewise, and you go take care of everything else. Like, you'll still own it, but give it to someone that can actually take care of stuff. So we'll see what happens, but yeah, what's going on right now definitely shows that he's more fan than boss, and he needs to basically stop acting. He basically needs to stop acting more as a fan and acting more as a boss. He needs to either be 100% boss, or he needs to be 100% fan and hand over the taking care of the wrestling aspect of AEW Ring of Honor to someone that's been in the business longer and knows what they're doing. Or he needs to find that perfect balance. 50-50 fan, 50-50, 50% fan, 50% fan, 50% boss. That's what he needs to do. But that's just my opinion. And that's about going to do it, guys, for this wrestling news video that I originally wanted to live stream last night, but the internet decided to take a dump on me for about 15 minutes because Xfinity, as I said at the beginning, decided, oh, we're going to do some maintenance, but we're going to actually disguise it as a planned outage, but it's really not. But anyway, though, guys, I just wanted to come on here and talk about all the news items that's been coming out between WWE and AEW. Let me know what your thoughts are down below. You will get a podcast version of this at my BW Roses Discussions podcast, which you can find on all your favorite podcast outlets except for Pandora, but more specifically find it at Spotify. That will help me out in a big, big way. But, let me know what your guys' thoughts are. Also, check out my Teespring store for merchandise you can't get anywhere else. Support me over at Patreon at BW Roses. Check me out at twitch.tv/BW Roses as well, and at VENMO at BW Roses as well. But guys, let me know what your thoughts are. I'd love to hear from each and every one of you on this. What are your thoughts on all the news items I had to say? And yeah, let me know. And until next time, guys, hope you all have a good Tuesday evening.